In this video, I'm sharing how I made this simple macrame plant pot hanger. I used 12.8 meters of macrame cord, scissors, a measuring tape, a plant in a pot, and my fingers. Using a measuring tape, I measured and cut a 2-meter length of macrame cord. To make this part easier, I just folded the cord on itself at the 1-meter mark. I used 6mm cotton macrame cord, but you can alter the width and length of cord for the hanger to suit your preferences. I repeated this process 5 more times. You can have more strands by having 8 of the 2-meter pieces instead of 6, but I wanted something more simple for this one. I cut two 40cm lengths by measuring out 80 centimeters and cutting this in half. These shorter pieces are used to start and end the macrame hanger. To start the macrame, I folded all 6 of the 2-meter lengths in half to form the hanging loop. Depending on where you plan to hang the macrame, adjust the size of the loop you need to fit over your hook. Where you start the macrame determines the size of the loop. I just used the hook on the back of a door, but anything stable and at a comfortable height will do, as long as you can remove the hanger once you've finished. Make sure the cords are hanging as even as possible before beginning. Take one of your 40cm lengths and hold one end against the hanging cords. Start at a lower position to create a larger loop, or higher for a smaller loop. I ran the short cord about 5 centimeters down, then turned it back on itself to create a loop. I then wrapped this piece around all of the cords, including itself. Keep this even and tight as you wind around until you reach the loop you created. Here, you want to feed the end of the cord through the little loop and tug on the other end that was left sticking out the top. This will pull both the end of the 40cm cord and the small loop under the wrapped section to hide it. This can take a little bit of wiggling depending on how tightly you wound the cord around the macrame. If you've only got a small amount of cord at the bottom, try holding it as you pull the loop up to keep tension until it disappears. Cut any cord sticking out the top or bottom. I kept these pieces for future crafting projects. Use something like closed scissors or a pencil and gently poke any visible ends inside the wrapped section. And there's a nice neat start to your macrame hanger. Start by sectioning out 4 cords and hold them side by side. The first knot I did was the half square knot. Bring the leftmost cord across the front of the middle 2. The rightmost cord then goes in front of this cross piece before being pulled behind the middle cords and fed through the gap between the first 2. I'll do this again up close. Bring the leftmost cord across the front of the middle 2 cords. The right cord then goes in front of the crosspiece before being pulled behind the middle 2 cords and fed through the gap between the first 2 cords. The knot is moved up to the top by pulling the tails of the outer 2 cords. Keep the knot from bunching up by pulling the middle 2 downwards as the knot moves. These knots can be as tight or loose as you like, but just keep them consistent for the best look. As you keep repeating this knot, always take from the left side first, and eventually the cords will form a spiral. This can get tricky as the knot eventually faces away and you end up seeing the reverse of the knot. To make this easier, you can either put pressure on to keep it facing you and twist it later, or rotate the whole hanger as you go. Or, if you can manage, just keep track of which cord is your original left-hand side cord, and remember that the right-hand one goes behind the middle 2. You can make the spiral as long as you like, but I stopped at 1 full rotation, which was about 10 half square knots. I turned my macrame around on the hook and repeated this process with another group of 4 cords. Repeat one more time to end up with 3 spirals. Make sure they are sitting evenly and wiggle the knots slightly if there are any places tighter or looser than the rest. I needed to add one more knot to my first spiral at this point. You can see how the half square knot leaves the ends uneven because the middle 2 cords of each section are not being used. Don't worry, the cords will even out a bit with the next step. From the initial groups of 4, take the 2 rightmost cords of one and the leftmost cords of another. I measured a distance of about 20 centimeters below the bottom of the spirals. To start the full square knot, begin in the same way as the half square. The new step for this knot is instead of repeating the same thing, the pattern is reversed. Take the rightmost cord across the front of the middle 2, pull the leftmost cord over the top of the crosspiece, then tuck it behind the middle ones and feed it through the gap between the 2 rightmost cords. Tighten by pulling the outermost cords and keep it neat by tugging the middle 2 downwards as you go. Rotate the hanger to start on the next knot. Repeat the full square knot again by taking the 2 rightmost cords of the previous section and add them to the leftmost cords of another. And repeat again with the last 4 remaining cords. Make sure the 3 knots are sitting even before continuing. Because we've now used the original middle cords from the spiral section, these cords have now been shortened slightly. At this point, I decided to add 2 more full square knots to each section. Wiggle them around if you need minor adjustments, or you can unravel and start again if there is too much difference. You can count the knots for this one by looking at the number of times the cord goes vertical. This is how it looks with 3 full square knots. See how the crossover has reduced the difference in the 2 lengths we had after the half square knots. Because I wanted to have minimal wastage on this project, I added a little twist to keep using the longer cords as the knot forming cords. Instead of just taking the outermost cords to form the crossover, I moved the 2 cords which would have become the middle pieces and stayed longer in front of the outer cords to swap places. This meant the long pieces were on the ends of the new section of 4 cords, and the shorter cords became the middle. This isn't a necessary step, but it does help even the cords out so you don't have lots of excess to cut at the end. I measured about 10 centimeters and created 1 full square knot. Rotate the hanger and start the next one. Again, take the 2 rightmost cords of one section and the 2 leftmost cords of the other section, cross the longer cords to be the outer pieces if you wish, then start the full square knot about 10 centimeters below the previous one. Make sure the knots are even in height and tension, then repeat the crossover a 3rd time with the remaining 4 cords. After the second crossover, you can really see the shape taking place, and by doing the little swap before the last knot, the ends are now even closer in length than before. This is where the plant pot will end up sitting after the bottom of the macrame is tied off. Finish the macrame how it started. I tied mine off about 10 centimeters below the final knot. Decide where you want the base of your plant pot to sit and how much of the macrame cords you want sticking out the bottom. Using the second 40 centimeter piece of macrame, hold one end vertical just above the point you want your macrame to end. As we did in the beginning, fold this piece back on itself about 5 centimeters down to create a small loop. Then start winding the piece around all of the cords, including itself, leaving just enough of the 40cm piece sticking out to pull later. Keep the tension even as you go. When you reach the end of the piece, feed the end through the loop you created and tug the piece you left out the top to pull the bottom under the wrapped section. Once most of the end is obscured, adjust the wrapped section if it became uneven. Cut any excess from the top and bottom and keep for another project. Poke the visible strands back into the wrap section for a clean finish. On the bottom of the macrame, cut any cords longer than the rest, and if you like the frayed look, you can stop here. But I wanted to seal the ends to prevent further unravelling. To stop the macrame cord from unravelling further, I used my trusty glue gun to add a small amount of glue across the fibres, then twisted them in place to form pointed tips. Repeat this process on all of the cords. You can cut the glue if the points become too long or create a strange shape like some of mine did. Once they're all relatively even, remove any stray glue strands and you're ready to assemble. Simply place the pot in the holder and adjust the macrame and plant for a snug fit. It's best to use a pot with holes for drainage inside a pot without holes to prevent drips on your lovely new hanger. Then find a nice place for your hanger to live. When choosing a plant, make sure it's suitable for indoors if you want to keep the macrame hanger inside. I went with this cute variegated ivy because it supposedly can survive with low light. And there it is, a simple macrame plant pot hanger. I hope you enjoyed watching this little project and are inspired to give it a go yourself. Of course, there are variations on how the different knots can be applied, including lengths, distance, numbers, where the crossovers are, and how you start and finish your macrame. Let me know if you have another method you like to use. Alrighty guys, you know the drill. Like a video to feed the creator for a day. Subscribe to support them forever. Until next time, stay creative.